few new faces tonight, so we appreciate you coming. A couple of housekeeping things. My name's Randy McFarland. My wife Mary Ann's running the computer. And Scott and Sylvia Clegg have helped a tremendous amount this year. Scott is going to give our program tonight, and Sylvia created all of your little party favors. So, the format tonight, for those of you that haven't been here, Scott's going to give just an informational presentation, take questions, very informal. Then we'll take a break. Then those of you that brought pieces to sell can put those out. Just please don't put them out now, so we don't distract our speaker. Out of respect for our speaker, how's that? So, and again, this is very informal. We appreciate you being here. Feel free to, after this is over, come up and look. Just please don't touch. Scott will have a heart attack if you do.
No, you'd probably get a broken finger.
But this is, part of why we do this is for information for folks, regardless of what level of collecting you are. You always learn something, and you always see something new. And it gives folks an opportunity to bring a few pieces and sell, trade, whatever you want to do. So we've done that for a number of years to just allow anybody that wants to can bring some pieces and sell those tonight. So, without further ado, Scott Clegg is going to give a presentation on Hold Your Horses.
There's some more.
Again, my name is Scott Clegg, my wife Sylvia Clegg. We started collecting pottery, Frankoma pottery, about 1989. And my mother, was the culprit, got us into that. We've collected all these years. We were charter members of the original FSCA club. And just general collecting. We've always been collectors, pretty much, not really dealers, although we have sold some things over the years.
Can y'all see it okay?
Can y'all see?
Okay. Oh.
Next slide. Next slide. Just click on the screen. All right, so Frankoma, they started producing horses probably from the very beginning of their factory production. They introduced horses, figurines into their line. They had, most of those horses in that era were Joe Taylor pieces, designed by Joe Taylor. And a lot of those molds were destroyed like in the 1938 factory fire. So you won't find those pieces after that Norman era in the same size. You might find them where they've recreated the molds and they'll just be different size because when you recreate the molds, they shrink. And for the most part, figurine molds, just so you know, are numbered 1XX and 4XX are your bookend numbers. There's one exception to that. It's the Charger Horse bookend, and I'll talk about that when we get to that particular mold. So we're going to start off with mold 107, which is the rearing Clydesdale. And it was a Joe Taylor piece. It started in 1932 to 1942. The one here's pictured in ivory, which is the one on the table here. It was reissued in 72 to 75, and then in the 1936 catalog, just some information, it sold for $4.50, which in that time and era, that was a lot of money for a piece of pottery. So, and then I wanted to note, Gary Schaum's book has a really good example of a two-tone where they did onyx black and prairie green hooves, mane, and tail. So if you have his book or you can get a picture of his book somewhere, you can look for that particular piece. It's really a nice example of a two-tone that you won't just see anywhere you go. Okay, next slide. This is the 1972 reissue in flat black, and the molds are smaller. This is the example on the table that's pictured there. Okay. And in 1996, Tom Grog was one of our FFCA founding members. He commissioned or asked Frankoma to produce a number of older figurines as a reissue series. One of those being the rear Clydesdale, and those were made in different colors, prairie green, desert gold, onyx black, and bone, and this is one pictured in bone, and I didn't bring my example, but I have one of those too. Any questions? Good so far? Okay. Y'all can all hear me? Yeah. Okay. Next. Okay. In circa 1942, they took the rearing Clydesdales and they offered bookends, but they offered them as mold 431. This is where I was talking about. It was a 107 before, and now it's a 431 for the bookend versions of those. And they offered them in two different variations. They came on a 2-inch walnut base, or they came on a ceramic base, which is shown here. Okay. 108, Prancing Percheron. This is probably one of the rarest horses to find. It's probably the hardest one to find anywhere. I mean, you can find them, they're very hard to find. It was a Joe Taylor piece from 1933 to 1938. The mold was destroyed, and they didn't recreate the mold for this one because I've talked to some of the people who've talked to John East in the past about them, and those sources told me that it was a difficult piece to produce in the factory, and they just didn't recreate the mold. Once it was destroyed, they felt like it was more time consuming to make it than it was worth, so it didn't get reissued. It sold for $2 in the 1936 catalog.
Just prairie green?
No, they come in other colors. I have is it an ivory? We have an ivory one as well. Yeah. I'm sure they come in other colors, black. Yeah, y'all can tell me, the other collectors who have them, if there's any other colors between.
I have black.
You have black. Do you have any other colors?
I got ivory.
Pompeii and bronze. Okay, yeah. I know there's other colors that came in. Okay, this is the one I was talking about. It was originally issued as Mold 420, Charger Horse bookend, because it was a bookend. From the beginning, it was a bookend. But again, it was a Joe Taylor piece from 33 to 1960. This one's pictured in Pompeii bronze. It's on the table here. But in 1942, they had, well, I'll get to that in a second. In 1972, they reissued this one as 111, which is a figurine mold number. And that's a little odd to me because it's still a bookend to me. But I think it's because of the pricing difference. Like, I've got some pricing information up here. Like in 36, it was $4.50 a pair. In 42 and 49 catalogs, it was listed at $3.50 a pair. It went down $1 a pair. In 55, it came up 50 cents a pair to $4. But in 1972, when they reissued it, it was $5 each. And that's when they changed the mold number to 111. So I think they went to selling them as individual pieces at $5 each, and they changed the mold to a figurine number. That's my speculating. It had a catalog, 1942 catalog description. I've included some of the catalog descriptions because they're kind of interesting. The 42 catalog said that, described it as massive in design and heavy enough to hold books. And it is, it's a pretty hefty, if it's filled with plaster, it's a pretty heavy book and it will hold some books up too. And probably the easiest of the horses to come across in your collecting adventures is the Charger horse book.
Except in Pompeii and bronze.
Well, not in Pompeii and bronze, but you can find the horses themselves in the colors, yes. Okay. This picture is not real clear, but you can check it out later. Most of these are, I say most of them, but a lot of the pieces in the Norman glazes are tailor marked on the back. And later on you can see the ivory one I have here. It's pictured up here, but you can't see the tailor in the picture very good. The T, it gets washed out in the pictures, but when you look at the back of it, you can see the tailor in the clay before they glazed it, which is, it's desirable. It's one of our little favorites, the 117 Prancing Colt. It's 1942 catalog with 35 to 52, $2.50 in the 36 catalog, but the 1942 catalog describes it as so full of life, everyone loves him. Yeah.
Does he stand up?
He will stand up. I don't like standing him up because
He
he's
falls
not
out.
very stable.
That's
He's
what
not a
most
stable
say.
horse. Let's put it that way. I'm joking. This is a picture I got offline. It's a prairie green with unglazed hooves and mane and tail, and it's currently on eBay for sale right now. Okay, next slide. So, watching old movies, which my wife and we like to do, we were watching My Man Godfrey, which is a 1936 Universal Picture Studios movie with William Powell and Carol Lombard. And he's going into the bathroom, and there's this cabinet on the side, and you can see the Prancing Colt in the cabinet. And that was in 1936. This piece was introduced in 1935. So it was like rarely maybe 1 year old when it made it to the movies. Okay. Next slide. And then also in the 1936 Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer pictures, Live Old Lady, again starring William Powell, but this time with Jean Harlow. There's two figurines, and they're on the fireplace mantle in this movie. Again, 1936, 1 year after they've been introduced. Okay, next. Okay. We're up to the 121 bucking Bronco. All right, again, Joe Taylor, designed 1938 and 49 production. This one's in Texas Brown or Osage Brown, whatever you call it. And $1, the 1938 catalog. I wish I could buy many more of them for $1 now. The catalog descriptions for this one were kind of cute. The 1938 catalog describes the figurine as a figure characteristic of the Southwest, and the 42 catalog describes it as so Western, he is kicking the cacti. And this one is the bookend. So these are the 423 bookends, and you notice they have a stepped base on them. Those were introduced in 1942 and produced until 1949. So the figurine came first, the bookends came later. .138 circus horse. I put up here designed by Joe Taylor, but some sources say it is, some sources say it isn't. One thing we do know is it doesn't appear until the 1942 catalog, but the piece I have on the table here is clearly Norman glaze with a round O on it. Several sources say that it was produced, but it was never in their production line. It was offered, but not in their real production lines before 42. It became a real production piece in 42. Its catalog description in 42 describes it as prancing Percheron horse, not the circus horse that we call it today, but it says prancing Percheron horse, somewhat stylized, but a good design for pottery, a circus horse. And the circus horse is what stuck for the name for the rest of these years. And later years, this is a clip out of Gary's book that has the Greystone pages, and it was offered as a Greystone piece in the 50s as well.
Vicki,
As
there's your
mold
little
number
deer.
211.
Vicki McBain, there's your little deer.
Yeah. Next slide. Okay, we're up to 162 Trojan horse. And I don't have a lot of information on who produced him or anything like that, but he was produced 1942 to 57. I think he was produced in 1942 to replace all the Japanese tchotchkes that came across, so they could have some little trinkets you could sell for that were, you know, decorative and pretty. And you can find these in many, many colors. One of the pieces of information I found was that in the 1942 catalog, it listed it on a 3-quart cookie jar with the horse on the lid as the handle for $1.75. That's in 1942, and Bob McBain's book has it also shown as a 99 cookie jar with the 162 horse attached. And this is a clip out of the 42 catalog that I have. .182 hobby horse flower holder. It was produced circa 42 only. It sold for 35 cents. It was one of 4 flower holder designs that they introduced. They had a duck, they had a fish, they had an elephant, and they had this hobby horse. And we're up to 103. 103 is the mare and colt sculpture. This one is actually designed by Willard Stone. Willard Stone was an American Indian carver, sculptor, artist who made he made sculptures. And in '63, they introduced these pieces as a series for that year only, and then later reintroduced them or reissued them back in the '70s. It only came in white sand and rubbed bisque, according to the catalog, but you might find it in other colors if you find some odd piece somewhere.
Late.
You have
Late ones had several different colors.
later ones? Okay.
Lots of weird colors.
Okay. Yeah.
Some way to tell the difference between them, between
The
the.
'63, other than the clay on the bottom would be the only thing I would say. The '63's probably got a dark red clay, I would think. And the newer ones might be a lighter red clay. This is one of my favorite pieces. Prancing Percheron bookend, and it was offered 34 to 38. This one is shown in maple. It's probably of bookends or horse related. Next to the rearing, the Prancing Percheron is probably one of the very hardest pieces to find, very rarest pieces to find. And the mold for it was supposedly destroyed this also in '38. Although you said you had one that had an oblong O on it, so maybe we're wrong, I don't know. We'll have to research that some more. Okay. The old wall plaque silver squirrel. This one was introduced in 1938, and there's no information about what it refers to, but when I did some internet researches, I found that in 1937, there was an American saddlebred horse by that number, 25645M, that holds that same name, Silver Squirrel. And it was the American saddlebred horse champion that year. So I'm speculate, my speculation, that they produced this plaque honoring that horse. And then other pieces that had horse-related things were plates. We had a number of plates that had horses on them. We had the 1972 Bicentennial plate, the Sooner plate, the Oklahoma Land Run plate, which is actually the same as the Sooner plate in design, with just the titles changed. The Rural Carrier Letter Carriers plate, pulling a wagon. We had the Texas, or TX1 Texas plate that has the cowboy on a rearing horse. We had the Assault, which King Ranch 1946 Triple Crown winner plate. And we have a Methodist Tulsa plate, which has the minister riding his horse off to site. There was also one, I pictured it today. I just saw it today. Let me get it up here and I'll describe it to you. I don't have a picture of it, but it is the 1964 Green Country Classic Mustangs 30th anniversary plate, and it has a Mustang running across the plate.
So a bunch of those.
Okay, next slide. This plate is a plate my wife picked up. We call it the Warren plate because down the bottom lower left of the horse, it's got the name Warren in the grass. And not sure, we don't have a lot of information on it. Don't know who Warren is, if Warren created it, it was made for Warren, if that was the last name of somebody it was made for, if it was a lunchbox piece, which we don't feel like the lunchbox piece because it's done so well, but more likely made for somebody or by somebody. You know anything?
I've seen some lunchbox pieces that were very crafty.
Yeah,
Some bases.
yeah, it could be. There's not a lot of information on it. We picked it up because we like the cartoonish
I think it's
horse
That
on
looks
it.
gorgeous, yeah. I like that.
probably a one of a kind.
Maybe.
I bet it
Next.
is.
Okay. And then other items, having horses were, we had some mugs. We had the end of the trail horse and rider coffee mug. There was a cross-country trail ride Eminence, Missouri coffee mug, a Will Tell advertising coffee mug, the Go Horse serving platters, the Ride 'em Cowboy trivet, better known as the Cowboy trivet, the Oklahoma Land Run trivet, and there's also one I saw today.
You've been shopping.
No, just out, happened to see this one, but there's also the, it's the Horse and Rider trivet. End of the trail horse and rider trivet as well.
Oh, yeah.
And those are still available out at the Frankoma Potteries, produced now. And then, you're okay. And then, oh yeah, one other thing that, we found on this trip, that horse is a little coaster. It has UMB Bank, America's strongest bank, and it's got a horse and rider on it, an Indian horse and rider, bareback rider on it. And this was from an old autumn 2004 Pot and Puma. I clipped out a page where there was an article on Greystone pillow vases, and they put horse and rider decals on Greystone pillows. And the bottom is marked Bear, B-E-A-R, in the clay on these. Something in my looking, most all this came from catalogs or books or whatever reference material we have. Okay. So, listing chronologically, horses, we had 1932, they introduced the 107, and this may not be totally accurate, but this is based on what I've got. 1932, 107 rearing Clydesdale figurine. 1933, the 108 prancing Percheron figurine. 1934, the number 420 Charger horse bookend. Also in 1934, the prancing Percheron bookend. In 1935, the 117 prancing Colt figurine. 1938, the 121 bucking Bronco figurine. Also in 38, the Silver Squirrel plaque. 1942, they had the number 138 circus horse figurine. And it was also produced in Norman years, but although it wasn't in any catalogs. The 1942 162 Trojan horse figurine. 1942 was also 182 Hobby Horse flower holder. 42, they also had the 431 rearing Clydesdale bookends introduced. In 42, the 423 bucking Bronco bookends were introduced. In 1963, the 103 Marion Colt sculpture was introduced. In 1972, they reissued the Charger horse bookend as 111, which is a figure number. And that's what I have down chronologically in dates. And all that was just based on my research of catalogs, books, information I have. So it could be wrong. There's always room for error. And that should be it. Okay. All right.
Good job.
I can think of one.
What's that?
The seahorse bookend.
Horse, yeah, okay.
Horse of a different
Any other
color.
name?
All right. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you so much for putting up with my presentation.
Good job.
I have some pieces up here, and you're welcome to come up and look at the pieces. Please,
Don't
if
bring
you,
heavy.
yeah, please, if you want to see some, let me hand it to you. Some of these pieces are very valuable and very rare and hard to find pieces. I just don't want you to be responsible for them, is what I'm trying to say. Thanks.
Any questions?
Where's the light?
Questions for Scott?
Yes.
Questions for Scott or questions?
There are a lot of Frankoma experts in this room. So I think any question is fair game on any Frankoma.
Any questions? Yes.
Regarding, when you mentioned the fire, and was that in Ada?
That was in Ada.
No,
Sapulpa.
Sapulpa.
The factory is already in
Well,
Sapulpa.
I knew there was a.
38.
fire.
38.
You mentioned the-
38 and 83.
There was 2 fires at least, 38
83.
and 83. If you think it 38 and 83, the numbers
Yeah.
are reversed. But
So did they rebuild it when they, because I have pieces, you know, of Ada clay, so was that before the fire? I don't know.
they still used Ada clay up until the 50s. The source of clay stayed the same, but the factory burnt with all the molds in 38, and then they rebuilt the factory and they reissued a lot of the molds. The ones that weren't destroyed, I'm assuming they could continue pouring. The ones that did get destroyed, they had to recreate those molds and reissue them. True?
Now, John Frank, when they started using Ada clay, he was in Norman, he was a professor at OU. So he went to Ada and dug clay and took it back to Norman and processed it. So the whole time he was at OU, where he started this ceramic art program, they had found a vein of clay in Ada that worked very well. So we've got some photos, I think we showed some pictures last year of him in a truck going to Ada and getting the clay and taking it back and processing it at OU. So they continue, even after he moved to Sapulpa, they still, for a while, went to Ada and got Ada clay. And then in 54, 55, started using the Sapulpa clay out of Sugarloaf Hill, the red clay. Yeah, so for 20 years or so, they went to Ada and dug that clay.
Any other questions?
Okay, well, you're welcome to come up and look, take a break. Those of you that have pottery you want to put out, go ahead and put it out, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for sharing these with us, Scott.
One time when we were set up at an antique show in Tulsa, one of Willard Stone's granddaughters came. She said he has a bunch of kids and a bunch of grandkids. She bought every Willard Stone figure from Dad, and because she said she hardly got anything.
I know. Well, we've met, over the years, we've met at least one of his daughters, or 2 of his daughters, and then I think we met some of his granddaughters.
We haven't done a show in Tulsa since then. Because now we're using the years because the one in Houston is closed because of COVID. But
Yeah.
she even left me her